What is unfortunate is happening. We have in this country not dealt with the issues of race and the value of African American lives. In Minneapolis, we are seeing this because of one individual, the district attorney, who has refused to move with the times. We commend the city, the police chief, and the mayor for taking aggressive actions. It is undisputable that the camera positionings gave us the facts of what was taking place. The standard is probable cause. We had plenty of probable cause that these officers committed the murder. And finally today, one of the officers have been charged and brought into custody.
Governor Tim Walz recently addressed the public, and he said that there would be a reckoning of the inequalities that led to this event. What does that look like to you, and what do you think needs to happen to bring about equality in terms of not only what's happening in Minnesota, but throughout the United States?
Well, last year, the NAACP, we issued an economic report on the city of Minneapolis. And we had a forewarning in there if the gap in social mobility, economic opportunity was not closed in that city, it was like a powder keg. Something was bound to take place. And what we've seen this past week is that something taking place. It is not only what happened with the police murder of Mr. Floyd, it's also the underlying economic conditions of that city that has been systemic and long-lasting.
What about elsewhere? Because this is not the only time this has happened in the U.S.
Well, unfortunately, we've seen this pattern for far too long. NAACP, 111 years old, from 1920 to 1933, we used to hang a flag out of our window saying another man was lynched yesterday. We are at a point now that we have to hang out that flag once again on social media to say we're done dying, because far too often across the country, the value of the lives of those who are being victimized by law enforcement for all practical purposes is something that needs to be reevaluated, that we are equal under this Constitution, we are human, and there's a moral question here for many people to really grapple with, that we are as much citizens and human as anyone else in this country.
You mentioned the hashtag "We Are Done Dying" here, and that you're hanging out a virtual flag on social media that another person has died. What actions is the NAACP taking to bring about those discussions of equality?
Well, we are moving the discussion so people can take action. The action for us is in November at the election poll. When you see the incident that took place in Georgia, the district attorney unwillingness to act, that same district attorney will be on the ballot in November. And now, because of the inaction, there's an opponent in the community in Georgia. They will be voting at record highs as a result of that. We've seen it also in Minneapolis, where that district attorney and elected officials have refused or were slow to act. And I can assure you, once he's on the ballot, there's going to be a heightened a movement towards the polls. We've seen that across the country, whether it's the election of the district attorney in Chicago or in Jacksonville, Florida, or in Columbus, Mississippi. There's an aggressive piece of activity that people are beginning to pay attention to, that in order for there to be justice, in order for police officers to be held accountable, we have to have district attorney offices that truly believe that everyone should be afforded equal protection under the law.
One last question here. You know, we've seen the protests that then escalated into riots. There's more protests scheduled this weekend, not only in Minnesota, but throughout the United States. Taking everything that's happened this past week into consideration, what are you most hopeful for?
Well, we're hopeful that as we move forward, that nonviolent, peaceful protest is an indication that the system has broken down, that there is no true justice. But when the justice system actually works for all of the community, and there are opportunities for all of the communities, there will be no need for these type of protests. As NAACP, we absolutely oppose rioting. That never solves anything, but peaceful protest is a way for the citizens of this country to bring forth grievances of injustice as we see them.